Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. And man, it has been a very long time, A, since I've been on the pod, it feels like, but B, since we've had all four of us together. This might be the first time this year. I think we've kind of had like some intermittent, hosts and guests and whatnot, but damn, feels good to be back. I got my whiskey here tonight. I'm fresh off a work conference last week where I had enough drinks, but we're ready to get back on the wagon here. So, Ryan, what do you got going? How are you, by the way?
I'm great. I'm doing great. I told you guys pre-show here, but I just accepted a new job, so that's always fun. Get to lead a team. Poor suckers picking me to lead people. It's crazy, but I think I'll do a great job. Drinking Spotted Cow tonight. Keeping it easy with some beer.
Overrated beer. Just gonna throw it out there.
Here, let me say this. I wouldn't say overrated. I would just say it's nothing special. It's just super consistent. It's like a good beer for any occasion. It's nothing special, but it's so consistent that it's a great beer.
Okay, I'll let you have it. Great. I don't know if I go with great, but I think it's. I don't want to go down this tangent. Never mind. Nick, what are you drinking tonight, man?
I was back in Washington, D.C. for a wedding this weekend. So I had lived there for 6 years. And one of my favorite beers is a local brewery called Port City in Alexandria. And so this is a wheat beer called Optimal Wit. So I basically just loaded up on it and brought it back because I love it.
Hell yeah. And Miles, were you drinking anything tonight? You taking the night off?
An emergency.
Miles is fresh off the vacation in the Dominican where I'm sure he had plenty to drink.
Actually, we didn't drink that much. I think Friday was like the only day I really was day drinking. Otherwise, it was just like here and there. I don't drink as much as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
You can always change that. That's just a mindset.
I believe that during that drink,
mindset.
He was sending me a bunch of PFF mocks. He does when he drinks.
Yeah, and I was like, don't take me seriously, dude. I'm drunk. So like,
I have to be honest. It is incredibly difficult to maintain concentration at a work conference when you three are in the DMs, just a full on, like you guys are writing a book in there. It feels like, so that's another reason we all have to be on tonight. Well, that's what I need you to tell me about, because I didn't go back. I'm not one of those people who goes back and rereads everything. Like, just catch me up to speed, or I'll get it on the next time. But what were you guys chatting about, by the way? You guys seem pretty passionate about it.
It was the most non-serious argument that we could possibly have because we agree on 95% of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the baseline for any good discussion. So it was going back to the cornerback thing again. Whether or not what's more likely.
No. It wasn't just the cornerback. It was cornerback versus wide receiver.
I was getting there.
Okay. All right.
What's more like? I'll be accurate about it. What's more likely to be a high draft pick, a cornerback or a wide receiver? And for what it's worth, neither of us think either position is going to be a high draft pick, so it doesn't matter. But it's more about
specific to the Vikings. You're saying,
yeah, specific, yes, yeah. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, we can get into it now, and I think I subjected Ryan to this, last time that we recorded, and I came up with more data. I don't know that it's super relevant to get into, but I'm always ready to go into it.
I mean, I just look at data as just for nerds, and if you just watch the game, you can see that we need a corner. So, I'm back on train QB or cornerback as the first pick. I'm back on.
Here was my argument. I'm never anti wide receiver, point blank. Period. I'm all for wide receiver. If they took a wide receiver early, I promise you wouldn't hear me complain. I think based off the sample of what we have between Kevin O'Connell's offense and who they have in their offense, a wide receiver 3 in round 1 doesn't make a lot of sense for me. That, like, Justin Jefferson has, 160 plus targets every season. I think Jordan Addison, because of the injury, had like 100. Probably would have had 120 if he wasn't hurt. And then I think Naylor and Aaron Jones were like the next two guys. Was like 60. I think 60 something for Aaron Jones and 40 something for Jalen Naylor, if I'm not mistaken. Then I know TJ Hawkinson, as he came back, was in that like 50, 60 range too. So that's that, like, there's Justin Jefferson, there's Jordan Addison, there's a gap, there's Jordan Addison, and then there's a major gap to like everybody else. Now I think a healthy TJ Hawkinson sees a bigger bump than that over anybody else. But I think where I struggle is I try to view the draft as long term, right? So I don't like to just think of it as like a what are they going to do for you now? But I do think if you're not going to get a lot out of them now, you're putting yourself in a hard position unless you don't plan to keep Jordan Addison long term. Like that's where my biggest hiccup is, or like holdup of it is all. Is like, what's the plan with Jordan Addison? If they want to keep him, we know there's off the field issues. We know all that stuff too. Like they have 3 years of team control of Jordan Addison, so like they don't have to make any decision on him financially for a while. So if they were to make that type of investment in a receiver now, I just question their long-term validity or thoughts with him. Because that third receiver wouldn't see a lot of opportunity outside of, major injury and stuff like that, which we all know, right? Depth, obviously always important. So I don't ever want to just like downplay that. But I just think like if you're just looking at it from like a functional standpoint, that third receiver isn't going to see a lot of opportunity anytime soon in this offense. And then you flip that to the cornerback. My argument for cornerback is it's not that there isn't a lot of like talent on the team in terms of young talent and guys that they seem to like. We obviously have Byron Murphy, who's getting $18 million a year. They signed Isaiah Rodgers, who we've heard they talked really highly of. And then Brian Flores, like one of those like secret, I don't even know what you want to call it, but like one of those like under the radar guys that he identified. That he's really excited about. My light keeps flickering, so I'm sorry. I don't know why the hell it's doing that.
We don't notice on our side.
Oh, okay, good. And then obviously you have Mekhi Blackman coming back from the injury. They signed Jeff Okudah, who they seem to like as like a boundary corner. So they have names, but when I look at the difference between the receiver room and the cornerback room, the one thing they don't have is like overall, like the talent is completely like the talent between the two positions. Cornerback is down here. They might have more names, but the talent is down here where the wide receiver talent's up here. Yeah. Because obviously you have Jefferson as like argue with whoever you want. This is a Vikings podcast, the best receiver in the NFL. And then obviously I would say that the duo between him and Addison is a top 5 duo in the league. And so I think you have a lot of talent there. And I think Jalen Naylor did solid in his like run as wide receiver 3 last year, and then he played well while Addison was hurt. I'm not saying he's your long-term answer. We know he's going into a contract year. I'm rambling a little bit, but my whole point is one thing we don't have at cornerback that they do at receiver is we don't have like that true like elite level player. I think Byron Murphy's an above average, really good cornerback. They needed to sign him. They had to overpay a little bit to do it. I had zero issue with it, especially when the real numbers came out, $18 million per year. He can get up to like $12 million in incentives, which is insane. I don't think you see that very often. No. But the way they structured that deal was very team friendly in terms of they got him his market value and they gave him an opportunity to earn more if he plays well enough to do it. That's great. But then you look at the guys behind him, very unproven and guys that just haven't played a lot of snaps, And so it's not that there isn't a belief in those guys. There's just a lot of what ifs. Whereas the receiver room doesn't have the what ifs. They have the how can we just fill out the rest of the room. Whereas I think there's a chance long-term at corner, if you really wanted to find a lockdown guy, it's usually in that first round, right? Just same with like interior defensive line. We know that. We've talked about that too, is some of these positions really do require you have to spend a high investment to get that level of player. Now, I know Nick might get in. I'll let you jump in here, Nick. That's my like core argument to it. It's not that I think they have to get one or the other early. I don't think they do, and that's what Nick started this show with. But I think that if there's an argument between the two, there's a bigger like gap in talent at cornerback than there is at receiver. That's where my argument lies. Sure. All of that I said just to end there.
We'll just cut it out.
Yeah.
So I guess let me set the frame with a little bit of data. So look, I sent this to you guys, I think yesterday, but looking at the corner and the way that Brian Flores has played his defense the last 2 years, on a per snap basis, you have, I think it's like 2.16 cornerbacks per snap. And then this past year was 2.3. So you're only playing if we say consistent to last year when they were a 14-3 team, which means the teams were playing from behind a lot, they're only playing a third corner 30% of the time. So and then if you flip it to wide receiver, the last 3 years, because it's a consistent offense of their KOC, they had the same numbers were 2.67, 2.56, and 2.55. So you're looking at that. That means over 50% of the time, they have 3 wide receivers on the field. And so, one is a starting position, which is wide receiver 3. And if you look at corner, you're only really starting 2 guys. Now, if we take Kevin O'Connell at his word and Brian Flores at his word that they've planned, their intention is that Isaiah Rodgers isn't going to be an every down player. Well, there's your 2 starters. And then what you need there is guys to come in, or when they expand on that 30%, which is Mekhi Blackmon, who is a Brian Flores pick, who graded at 71 in his 400 snaps in his rookie year, and who is fully cleared at this point. And so when you're looking at it from that standpoint, and then you look at Jalen Naylor, who was only a full-time player for 1 year, entering year 3, and he graded out at a 59, I think, at PFF, had a number of drops and things like that. And then you look behind him on the depth chart of the next guy to sub in, you have Rondale Moore, who is not even going to be healthy by training camp, and then Tim Jones, who I barely knew who he was when he signed. And that's it. That's the complete room. So I think we all agree that they need to add wide receiver regardless. But when looking at the long-term need there, you also have to think about the fact that Vikings defense was third in EPA last year, and their cornerbacks 2, 3, and 4 are still free agents right now, that they're not even signed because they weren't even that good. And so I think the way that Brian Flores structures his defense is that he doesn't prioritize. I know I completely hear you, Miles, that the talent level isn't there to have a top corner, but I don't think he prioritizes that. I think he prioritizes versatility, and he wants to get after the quarterback and then put the cornerbacks and the safeties in the secondary in versatile positions that confuse the quarterback to capitalize on those situations. And so, of course, you would like a top-end corner, but I just don't think I think they purposely went out to get Isaiah Rodgers, and they purposely went out to get Mekhi Blackmon to fill those specific roles. Whereas if you flip it, then you look at wide receiver, Jalen, with one injury, and to Justin Jefferson's missed time with injury before, Jordan Addison's missed time with injury. Jordan Addison's going to have a suspension probably, and what else might Jordan Addison do, right? And then if one of those goes down and you have Jalen Naylor, who's frankly I don't think very good, and then you have no one behind them, when the most important player on your team over the next few years is your quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. Now, this is a very, very pro J.J. McCarthy podcast as Vikings fans, but if they're trying to make it foolproof when they think that they can compete, to give him the most weapons possible and things like that, adding someone who, Miles, you agree with me, a perfect fit like Emeka Egbuka, who would go in there. He has a previous relationship with J.J. McCarthy because they recruited Ohio State together before J.J. went to Michigan. And just like you are creating a scenario in which you are creating a foolproof thing where even if your top 2 wide receivers miss time, then you're still going to keep the ship afloat, because if you miss one of those guys, you're kind of screwed. And then also you're basically making it so difficult for him to fail, where I think that Brian Flores can succeed being the mad scientist that he is, because he just proved it last year with Stephon Gilmore, Griffin, and Fabian Moreau, who are not very good, which is why they're not signed. Obviously, Gilmore's older, and so that's more of his thing. But I think they've upgraded at corner already. And so I just think between the two, what's going to help your team succeed more from protecting J.J. McCarthy, who's actually going to potentially see the field more was wide receiver 3, because that's actually a starting position. And I also think that you want to see if Mekhi Blackmon can take the next step. That's why you draft him in the 3rd round, pretty high pick, as part of your defense. He has the inside out versatility. Like, you want to see him play. You want to see Isaiah Rodgers play. You kept Nudie McGlothern on your team instead of bouncing him up and down the practice squad this whole time. You want to see him play. And my last point here too is you can always find a good corner. We're talking about, there's that rumor about Asante Samuel being available. What's the guy that the Raiders just,
Jack
released?
Jones.
Jack Jones, interest. Shaq Griffin's still out there. There are always corners that you can come in that can play exactly what the Vikings did last year with either Stephon Gilmore or Shaq Griffin that could play at a acceptable level. When you get on and pass the draft and things like that, and let's say one of those wide receivers or something goes down, you can't find a guy in free agency who can step up to that level during training camp and contribute to their team. And so it's not just about what the talent level is, but it's also about what the availability is. It's about, where you get your top players. I didn't even get into the difference between quarterback and wide receiver on surplus value difference.
Yeah.
About investing wide receiver, as well. And so once again, I don't think either of these are likely to happen, but those are all the reasons why, just between the two, I think wide receiver is more likely.
Ryan?
Well, I know we got a whole lot of stuff to talk about, and there's
you got a couple minutes here.
Yeah. I guess my whole thing here is that, you have a bunch of guys who are serviceable, and I get your point, Nick, around, an injury happening to a receiver. We can't forget we have TJ Hawkinson still, who's going to be a target monster if he needs to be, especially if we do have one of those injuries. He can, a couple of years ago, he was our wide receiver or pass catcher too, right? Like he was. So I think he can fill into that role. My thing is we don't have any long-term legitimate answer at corner. We just don't. We have a bunch of guys who have potential, who can show up, and you keep referencing, and I agree with this to a certain extent. Flores can make a lot of things happen with a lot of guys. But the thing here is that we're sitting in a situation where Flores might not be here next year. Right. Like, obviously we can have a phenomenal season, and he might get poached as a coaching candidate for a head coach job. And then who's our DC? What are they going to run? Do they need a shutdown corner? Do they need a legitimate top guy? So as Miles's point, you use the draft to kind of to prepare yourself for the long-term future, not just the short-term future. And sure, maybe a Siobhan Ravel doesn't need a ton of playing time this year. Let him kind of come in here and grow. Let him sit and watch, or let him get some reps here and there, or Trey Amos or whomever it is that we would potentially target. And in a year or two, Flores might be gone, and we might not have this mad scientist anymore who can make it work with a bunch of these kind of mid-tier guys. And then my only other thing is we just don't have height in that room. And so me specifically, I'm sitting here like, I want a big corner. I don't just want like Asante Samuel's talked about potentially coming here. That's great, but that's another 5'10" corner. What are we going to do when we go up against Mike Evans in the playoff? Or whoever it might be, right? Like, what are we going to do at that point when he can jump ball any of our corners? And then my only last point here is we were able to run a lot of 3 safety sets last year, and I know that's a common thing for Flores. We had Cam Bynum, who was a proven.
That was going to be my last point too. Yeah,
who's great, and Theo Jackson. I know they're really high on him. They're just like they're high on Blackman, and just like they're high on Rodgers. Limited reps, limited opportunities to watch him play real football.
Sure.
And again, in every opportunity that all 3 of those guys have played, they played well. They've graded out well. They played really well. So there's no reason to believe they won't continue to play well. But all I'm trying to say is, what if they don't trust Theo Jackson as much this year? Do they revert back to more 2 safety sets and bring in a 3rd corner? So mix and match. You got to just play whatever is at your disposal. And I just want to make sure that we have the best resources available. That's why I'm pro corner. Even with our first pick, I prefer a trade down so we can accumulate more opportunities and take another receiver. I'm really high on a receiver at some point here in the draft, just as a developmental guy, because Naylor is in his last year. So we do need to bring somebody in as well to have this as a future wide receiver.
And I think that last point here is, I think overall what we all agree with is the draft isn't just about like filling holes now. Like the whole point of what the Vikings did this offseason to date in the free agency has been able to fill holes. And so the plan after that is to then supplement your draft with future needs and rounding out your roster, right? And so I don't like this idea. And I'm not saying anyone's saying this. I'm just like, the overall point is, I think when we get into it is, like, how do we then supplement this draft to match where the rest of the roster lines up for those long-term needs?
For sure.
And we've talked about wide receiver and corner recently, right? There are going to be needs at some point for those 2 positions. Are they like truly immediate? Not in the same way that we know the other positions are interior O-line, interior D-line. I think those are my 2 pressing ones. And then safety was the 3rd one, right? Interior D-line, you have Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. Those 2, and Harrison Phillips, sorry. Those are the 3 starters. Behind those guys, you have Jalen Redmond. Listen, I'm not done. I'm not done.
Better put some respect on my boy's name.
But that's only four D linemen. I know they have Levi Rodriguez, and Taimani, right? And so like I know you have those guys, but again, those guys have even less of a sample size than the cornerbacks that we've talked about, right? Yeah. And so you need future like talent at that position, especially. I think you don't know if Jonathan Allen can stay healthy. You don't know if Javon Hargrave can come back and stay healthy. And those guys are on shorter term deals and they're older. Like you want to have a guy in that room that can then supplement those guys in the next year or two, right? And then you guys go ahead.
By the way, Miles, we can now see your light flickering. So if you could fix that, otherwise we're gonna have to put like a disclaimer in the caption. But we could probably continue to talk on this conversation for a long time. Let's get to the mock draft where we can talk about some of these prospects.
Perfect.
And go from there. So let me pull this up here for folks who can't watch, who are just listening or just doing the PFF mock draft simulator.
Just for the record, Jalen Redmond had a 77 PFF grade, 13th best D tackle in the league last year.
What were his snaps? I'm not asking.
208. So not overly great, but 208.
Just curious.
Yeah.
All right. We're not trading up. Regardless, everyone agrees with that.
Yes, I don't think they will, but have we thought about that? That's the one conversation that has not happened. We saw last year the Vikings had very limited draft capital.
We're not going to do it for this podcast.
I know. I'm not trying to. I'm just like bringing up the talking point. What if there was a guy that they really liked that was at 18, 19, 20?
Miles,
right?
I'll ask. You'll be the only person I ask for this show. Yes, that too. If the Vikings were to trade up, who was the one prospect that you would want them to trade up for?
I mean, I think it would have to be like one of those top.
I want a name.
No, I know. I mean, it's the Walter Nolan or like Derek Harmon's. Like for me,
you would trade up for that.
I think those guys are going to be in the range that the Vikings are going to be at. But if you want to make sure you get them, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
So you're talking when you talk trade up, you're talking like 17, 18, 19, like that.
Yeah,
range.
Like what they did with Dallas Turner last year.
You're not talking like up to 11, 12.
Oh no, they're not. They're not sending a future first to move up in this draft. Like that's just not. I know that's not going to happen.
I agree.
Well, to be fair, the Lions didn't have to do that when they traded up from 32 to 12. But
and yeah, that's true.
Vikings win.
Yeah. Vikings win. That's right. I would also just point out on this, and then you can start this, Mads, that they're expecting potentially up to 3 comp picks next year.
That was going to be
to the thing, and so they might think that they could trade a 3rd rounder next year, knowing that they're going to get it replaced. And so
for sure.
I did see one of the NFL draft or NFL Network mock drafts have Will Johnson fall to the Packers at 23.
Damn.
And if that happens, I would do everything I could to trade up to the Chargers at 22 to say, give me Will Johnson.
I think at that point that Jim Harbaugh would be taking Will Johnson himself.
Well, in the mock, he didn't. He took Loveland, Colston Loveland.
Oh, other Michigan.
Another Michigan guy.
Same principle.
Which would be a great fit, too, by the way, for them.
Yeah.
I already hate this mock. Can I restart it?
Hold on. Just stop. Before you restart it, what are you hating? I haven't paid attention. So what are you hating?
Mason Graham's not going number 2 to the Browns.
I guess the part I don't really ever care about is how the top shakes out. Because it's like who's available for us. That's like all I guess I ever care about.
Lost out on Will Johnson, so all right, here we are.
And Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant, sorry, was another name. Look at those. See, look at those two. Like I'm always curious, like what their view on like nose tackle versus like 3-tech edge DN too.
My thinking on that is that I think what we heard is that they think that Harrison Phillips, Hargrave, and Allen can all flip flop between those top 3 positions, and so they may not feel that nose tackle is that important because if an injury happens, then they can just do a switcheroo on who's there. And so I'm thinking they want a more versatile guy than just say,
That's fair.
mean, maybe Grant can play multiple positions, but he pretty much is probably the best at nose tackle. So I think they probably want a more versatile guy. That's just me.
We're just rolling with these 4 picks, by the way, because nobody wants to trade with us here at 24. As we just saw Kenneth Grant and Walter
But
Nolan go.
This is the
picks
type
before
of
us.
board you would love if you're the Minnesota Vikings, by the way. Like,
Mhm.
look
Yes.
at all the guys available. You got Malachi Starks. We've talked to a receiver, right? Luther Burden's available. I would prefer Egbuka, but I like Luther Burden a lot. He's a really good receiver, really explosive, get the ball in his hands. Kelvin Banks is someone Ryan mentioned who could kick inside. And then I don't think they're taking running back anymore, but Omarion Hampton is a really good prospect.
Yeah.
And then obviously Gray Zabel and Derek Harmon are there, and then Trey Amos, and we talked about Ravel. Like, look at all those names.
Yeah.
But I think the one I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, like, Trey Amos, just more from the simple fact that we talk about needing a boundary corner. Trey Amos literally played the boundary for Ole Miss, where he was literally just on one side of the field. Wherever they were on the boundary, that's where he went one-on-one. And I'd just be curious, like, how the Vikings view that. I know, Nick, we've talked ad nauseum at this point about it. It's just one of those situations where I'd be curious if they like that type of guy. Like, I think that's what a Jeff Okudah will try to be for them this year, is like a true boundary corner for them as depth.
Ryan, have you looked into Amos yet? I have not watched him yet.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan. I think he's a really strong, violent boundary corner, as Miles is saying. He's got really good click and close capabilities. He sees the field well, can do press man, off man, zone. I mean, whatever really you need from him. You're going to get that with both Amos and Ravel. So I think those two guys right there, you have really strong quality prospects that are bigger corners, 6 foot and above, who again are have that ability to play on the boundary, shut down one side of the field, and really be able to lock down a team's best player. Now, will they? Who knows, right? Like, this is the draft, and it's a lottery, right? But you sit here, they have the skills, they have the skill set and the capabilities to be able to do that. I think I like Ravel just a tad bit more, just because I do think that he's probably just a little bit more athletic and a little better instincts. And he only played a couple games this year because of injury. But in those couple games, he had 2 interceptions already. So I think he was in for a big season. And
well,
also
we talked about it before too, but like he was headed towards like top 15 pick before he got hurt. And his size too. Like, I mean, you want to talk about a big corner, right? 6'3". You'll get that with him.
Yep. Yeah. So when I look at this board here, it depends on exactly what you want to do, right? I mean, you have probably
ideally trade back here.
Ideally you trade back, but you're sitting here. It's for me, I'm sitting here saying, for realistic prospects, we have my top 3 realistic prospects for the Vikings all on the board. In Derek Harmon at D tackle, who is just he is going to get after the quarterback. He's going to be a disruptor along that defensive line. Plays a bit out of control, where he'll miss opportunities because he's trying to shoot the gap or he's trying to make a play and trying to do things with an arm tackle. But that dude will disrupt the game. He's going
look
to
who he would get to learn behind too, right?
Right. You're not thrusting. He's not going to have to start.
Yeah.
No, not even just have to start. Those 2 guys are like some of the best pass rushing D linemen of the last decade in the NFL, right? And so I think that in itself is super valuable.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, just looking at this board, I mean, I think, when it comes to what Kwesi's tendencies are, I think a lot of the first round picks that he's gone with are younger. I mean, he drafts older players, but usually the first round picks are younger. And so just looking at the first few players, first, Trey Amos, like, he's a 23-year-old corner. So that just doesn't fit his, regardless of how I feel about corner, that just doesn't fit his thing. And that's why it's a reason I've had a little bit of hesitation on Zabel as well. But, Ravel, I mean, I think based on everything I've said about corner, I think he's definitely a better player. His PFF stable metrics are amazing. Like if he can bounce back from that, I think he could be a really good player. But my thing on that for corner, Andy's almost turning 23. I mean, I think the two players that really match, kind of what Kwesi's done in the first round that I see on this board right now are either Derek Harmon or Calvin Banks. I think if you are playing Calvin Banks at guard, then it's not necessarily a premier, high level position that really matches with what I think Kwesi wants to accomplish in the first round. But if you could draft him at guard with him playing there for a year, and maybe is he the Brian O'Neill replacement? Are we going to get a deal done with him? Are we going to extend him? What's the thing? I mean, I think that would be a good, safety net, and he'd probably be high end guard. He has the potential for that with his athleticism. I think he's only 21, so he would fit the mold there. And then obviously Derek Harmon, that's a high level player, 21 years old, graded well via PFF, which we know Kwesi cares about. So the way I'm seeing this board, either Calvin Banks or Derek Harmon scream to me the type of prospects that Kwesi goes for, matches the age, can match the premier athleticism and traits that they're for. And I have hard time judging either of these. I think that the interior defense line is really deep, but and we can get a good player later. But at the same time, like I just don't like the idea necessarily of taking a guard at 24. I don't know.
Can we all agree that there's no way in hell that Kwesi takes another Georgia safety?
I don't think he.
There's no way.
I don't think he'd be scared off of that at all.
I don't think he would be either.
Miles.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say his name because it's YouTube and there's weirdos out there, but give your kid a choice between Harmon or Banks.
Isaiah. Oh, I just said it anyway. Calvin Banks or Derek Harmon. Pick a name.
Wait, he hasn't watched film on them yet? Come on, Miles.
No, but he does want receiver. He wants football gloves. That's all he's been asking me for. He took my old ones to school.
My man.
They're already lost, I think.
Yeah.
Derek Harmon or Calvin Banks? Derek Harmon? All right, Derek Harmon.
Smart kid.
Smart. Yeah, I think we all agree that that's what we wanted.
Calvin Banks went right after, by the way.
Yeah, of course, right? I think that board in itself is pretty wild. If that was like what it ended up being at 24 for the Vikings, would be best case scenario.
We've talked about it at length, I think, this offseason, but the Vikings did free agency so well that like any board that falls to them is going to be pretty great. Like,
yeah.
And you don't have to draft these guys, maybe with the exception of guard, but I think they're fine with Brandel potentially playing left guard personally.
I think that's why, like we talked about, they're comfortable with their current lineup now, right? It's how do you put in a, oh God.
Oh,
quick last point on that first round pick. If Calvin Banks is still on the board at tackle, the Chiefs are gonna be calling it so hard
too,
because the Texans are definitely looking for offensive line right behind. So if Josh Simmons or Calvin Banks or whatever are on the clock there for us at 24, we're gonna be able to trade back.
Yeah.
All right, we're here at 97. Obviously, the names that jump out to me are Kyle Williams, right? We've talked about him. Jordan Reed on the show about a month ago was like, that's a name to watch for the Vikings and would fit very well as their wide receiver 3. Damian Martinez, I know we got Nick here, so I'm trying to take a.
We haven't really talked running back because like we obviously know that the Vikings re-signed Aaron Jones and they have Jordan Mason now.
Yeah.
But the one thing that they don't have is that like a supplement long term at that like dual that RB2 like the 1A 1B with a future Jordan with the Jordan Mason lineup. Obviously, it's Aaron Jones right now. We don't know who it could be in the next year or two to pair with Mason.
Do you think that because they made that move for Mason, it removes them from drafting a running back on day 2? Because I think a lot of fans are like, well, that's it. We're not going to consider it. But the class is so deep. Right. And, I mean, we've talked about it in our group chats. I mean, I've had conversations with Thor, like the value you're getting on running backs on round 3, who should be like early round 2 running backs in any other year. Like maybe you just swing for the fence and you've got this guy for the next 4.5 years, 5 years, whatever. I don't know. I think running back's still in play on day 2.
I do too.
I don't think fans are looking at it anymore.
I think if the right guy's there, they would take him.
But they're all the right guy.
If we're able to trade down and pick up another day 2 pick, that would increase my willingness to do it. But I feel like some of those other long-term needs that we've talked about so much rise up on the level of a running back, and I think we can get a running back in the future.
I agree with that too, by the way. Like similar to like how we've talked about receiver and cornerback. It's not a pressing need, but it is something long-term that they're going to have to address at some point. And with injuries and things too. Like it's never like they need a third running back this year. I don't think it's going to be Ty Chandler, right? I just don't think I think we're at a point where we know it's not him. So what about
Dwayne McBride?
Is he still on the team?
I'm joking.
Oh,
if DJ Giddens was here, I'd be punting the table.
Yeah, I like DJ Giddens too.
Where did he go?
I've been watching Andrew Makuba lately. I really like that dude's game. I really do. He's really good. They move him everywhere. I love a versatile like DB, a guy that can come down and play in the box, but also can play high. And I think that it did that a lot at Texas, and he did really well in that system. I think as a future third, potentially second safety to replace Harrison Smith, I would be okay with that move. Yeah. Now, I do really
actually.
Like
I personally think he is more of a. Sorry to interrupt. I think he's personally more of a Cam Bynum replacement than he is a Harrison Smith.
Sure, I'm just talking that pair with somebody. Yep. Like you pair him with somebody.
Yep.
I was when I first looked at this, I think Makuba and then Wyatt Millam were the two guys that really stuck out to me because Wyatt Millam, crazy PFF numbers, and he looks like he's a guy that's going to be moving into guard and could also have that tackle flexibility too. Like, and he's a people mover as well. Like we just talked about, in the first round pick, really looking at addressing the trenches, and that could be a guy that could be, your starter there and compete with Randall for that position.
And he got a lot of run at center at the Senior Bowl. So obviously evaluators must have thought he could play there as well. So again, potentially Ryan Kelly replacement long-term potentially or whatever as well. So, I mean, he's a versatile guy, and I wasn't super impressed with him at the Senior Bowl specifically, but that doesn't mean that should disregard the 3 years of phenomenal play that he's had at West Virginia over the last 3 years. So,
Ryan,
and I just want to throw this out there real quick, just as a quick joke. We talked about Makuba. I already vouched for Kelvin Banks. I think I'm going to throw up by the end of this process because there are so many Texas players that I'm all in on.
We can scroll down here if you want to.
Alfred Collins, huge fan of Alfred Collins, who's probably, that would be more of a trade back and then maybe taking a D tackle on the third or whatever. Jaden Blue, Isaiah Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are so many Texas players where I'm like, yep, I take him. Yep, I take him. So anyway.
Well, Ryan, I feel like right now you've definitely surpassed me in the amount of prospects watched. So I want you to take a look at this board and give us your vote here. I'm going to give you this pick, and don't screw it up, by the way.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with Nick here and just and move forward with Wyatt Millam. I want to secure that. I don't think that there's a lot of great talent on the
no consideration to running back, no consideration to wide receiver here after the conversation we just spent the first half of the episode talking about.
I really do like Kyle Williams, and I really like Isaiah Bond, who's just a little bit lower on this list. But what I'm looking at here is surplus value, and I think there's a couple after Wyatt Millam and Tate Ratledge. I don't think that there is a lot of great interior help in the draft outside.
Unless you think the North Carolina kid is like actually good.
I literally just I know he stood up Deion Walker at the Senior Bowl, and that was super impressive. I just don't trust like
such
a
an
280.
outlier. He's such an
Yeah.
outlier, man.
Yeah, like I'm fine with going with outliers, but weird. I wonder who I want here.
Oh, well.
Honestly, that's
I was gonna say Billy Bowman.
Why would Kyle Williams still be there? That's wild. I don't like to consider those because I just don't believe.
Yeah,
he
usually
would make
when
it
I see
far.
that, I kind of ignore
but there's always one.
Yeah,
every draft.
I know. Somebody will.
And part of it for this simulator is Kyle Williams was I think ranked 156 or 160 something recently, and they just redid these rankings and moved him way up. So sometimes the simulator, the AI doesn't quite recognize that, and so some of these good players who was he 63 overall, he falls because of that.
I think if one of the receivers is going to fall, it sounds like it's going to be Isaiah Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Just it sounds like there's off the field stuff. I don't know. I don't want to speak to someone's character, but it sounds like there might be some character
You're
concerns.
speaking to it right now.
Well, I'm just saying that's what it sounds like. I can't speak to it as if I know. That's
Miles
just what it's
saying. Isaiah Bond is a problematic.
Well, that's definitely the rumor on the street.
Diva.
I still like him. I don't care. I like my receiver with the little diva.
Yes.
Billy Bowman and Brashard Smith are my top two names here.
Those are my two names there as well.
I think Brashard Smith would give you a kick returner right off the jump. I view him as a Curtis Samuel light. He won't be as a college prospect. I know he's not going to go and become a full-time wide receiver. It's clear that he's going to be a running back. But I think he has that versatility where he could be that. I always thought Curtis Samuel could have stayed at running back and then just been used more out of the backfield, but obviously he became a good, serviceable NFL wide receiver. But I think Brashard Smith has that type of ability to him, and he's obviously ran a 4.39 too, so he's explosive.
But just for perspective, Bowman also did kick and punt return at Oklahoma. But that's fine.
Smith is also the type of back that once we see Aaron Jones rolls off and we're left with Jordan Mason, Brashard Smith would be a good balance to Jordan Mason as well. But I'm fine with Bowman or Smith here. I agree with Miles. Smith.
Nick, it's your pick. But just know, whatever person you go with, you might piss off somebody on this panel here.
Might not have a friend after this. I'm just saying.
No, I think that there is. Miles is going to be offended by this one, but I think that there's a cliff at safety after Bowman, and the way that I've kind of looked at it. So I'd rather go with Bowman. I still think that there's maybe some other running backs we can get.
That's it. Can't go back. Billy
Friendship
Bowman
saved.
is the
Friendship saved.
If
we do any more mock drafts and Bowman's not
Billy
on
Bowman,
that mock
way,
draft,
so.
we are all calling it quits on this podcast.
We can do a mock draft a week until the draft if you guys want.
Mm-hmm.
Without the pre fodder that we had tonight. All right, so we'll get the last pick coming up here. Honestly, if they don't do anything trade wise, you're hitting every bucket here as far as needs. Ty Felton is very good. I had him on my college fantasy football, and dude is a baller.
Top 7 prospects here are all receiver.
What running backs are available? Just to see.
Ooh,
I do like Taj Brooks.
Taj Brooks is good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a huge Donovan Edwards guy. I don't know why he's just I think if he'd come out last year, he would have been a considered higher pick.
That's fair.
He's just been nowhere.
His vision is just, or at least the last couple of years, his vision has not proven to be very good, and I think that's mainly why. Athletically, he's all the way there,
and he's a receiving type back too. But
yep, I mean he's made some crazy catches.
What do you guys think of LaQuint Allen? I
haven't watched him yet.
I would homework for you guys. He was number 1 in pass blocking as a running back in all of college, the whole draft class, and he broke Syracuse record for most receptions as a running back in program history, and he's still under 21 years old and runs pretty well too. LaQuint Allen.
So I think some of the knocks on him were like, again, kind of vision and his ability, like his agility more so than his long speed. I don't know. When I watched the very limited stuff that I did watch on him, because I don't have tape on him yet, is he looks darn good. So like, and I know JR loves him, Jordan Reed. From ESPN, he's a big fan of his as well. So, there's definitely a couple of running backs here that are quite intriguing. Taj Brooks, I'm a big fan of. LaQuint Allen, again, seems intriguing. Honestly, Raheem Sanders, I was really big on him like 2 years ago when he played for Arkansas. And he's produced at 2 SEC schools.
Wasn't he viewed as one of those a freshman, like one of those future first round pick type players?
Yep, exactly.
I remember the name.
Yeah, I think he has 2 of his 3 seasons were over 1,000 yards, and he's big, fast, strong, hits the hole well. I also like this Keandre Lambert from Auburn. And then I haven't watched any of Andrew Armstrong yet, but he seems interesting from things I've read.
He's kind of interesting guys too. So I think Ty Felton or pick your guy at running back would make sense to me here.
Miles.
Matt, this is your pick because we've all just picked the last 3.
No.
We just picked the last 3, bro.
I deferred my pick to the kid. I'll cut out his name.
All right, Miles, this one's yours.
This is Miles's pick.
Let's go Ty Felton.
I wish we would have had I actually probably would have traded back in that scenario. I would have pulled a Rick Spielman and just tried to get 3 6-round picks for that. But
I just feel like if they can't get a running back, I think they're going to go heavy in UDFA and grab one of those guys and pay him.
Well, that's the thing that I keep going back to is I do think there's going to be a lot of UDFA running backs that are good. Like when you talk about Donovan Edwards, Miles, like that's a guy that I wonder if the Vikings will, buck up the money for and pay him to come over to the team here.
You just said JJ had a full recruit job.
I still like Ollie Gordon, by the way. I know
his name has not been as hot lately.
I know his words have been not great this year, but I do think that there's enough on that 2023 tape to say that's a guy you give a chance to.
Yeah, for sure.
If they had Wyatt Millum appropriately placed as a guard, I bet that this would be a lot higher scoring draft by PFF.
Well, also they were like, you got to take Malachi Starks in that situation, which
I can understand too. It's a need. I can understand. He was ranked 9th overall on that board. So
yeah,
I can understand that.
But Billy Bowman,
Miles, I saw your message. You're released.
Yeah, I got to jump. See you guys.
But we'll see you next time. A good mock draft there. Now everything is all off. See, I moved my camera for Miles. Things just are way off now. A good mock draft, nonetheless. No trading, which kind of sucks. But I think maybe the next handful of weeks heading into the draft, we hop on and just do a quick one and show the people what we're thinking. A lot is going to shake out here in the coming weeks. There's still some pro days left to happen, I believe. There's still a few big ones left. And we got a lot of top 30 visits that are rolling in, which is good to see. I know Nick, you were getting excited on the timeline today, or at least this past week.
Oh, just the one on the guy I thought was a sleeper they brought in, which always makes you feel good. That
who was that again?
It was the Tyrion Ingram, Dawkins or whatever, the tweener from Georgia. Didn't put together quite yet.
Has Kwesi? This isn't meant to be a tangent thing here, but has Kwesi ever drafted a top 30 visit guy?
Yeah, he has, but they've explicitly said that don't look into it too deeply. They bring in guys for any number of reasons. And I think they do a lot of UDFA focus as well as part of that because they want those guys in the building. So, I mean, they brought in Harmon, so
that's true.
There we go.
And honestly, he might be my favorite prospect at that 24 spot or a small trade back. I mean, you guys all heard me talk about him in the chat since like, I don't know, January.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I've been a big fan of his. And yeah, so that's definitely somebody I really am excited about if we decide to go that route.
Yeah, I mean, they have a plethora of paths they can go. It's really just we'll just see how the board falls and go from there. It's just exciting to be a Viking fan right now because I just think that the sky is the limit, and barring like a quarterback draft pick, which I don't think they're going to do, I'd be floored if they do. They really can't screw it up. Like you can justify every single position down the line, and still be successful. So we'll come back next week. I think we got some guests in the pipeline. I know for sure we have an episode with Thor Nystrom again next week. We're going to re-record our failed attempt the first time where we break down some draft prospects and watch some film. So that will be a can't miss episode, assuming your producer here doesn't screw it up. And I think we'll be back with some mock drafts. And yeah, guys, it's like less than 20 days to the NFL draft.
And Matt, I'd love to do what we did last year, where we do a top 5 for offense and defense, all the positions, top 5 for each of those for the Vikings, not necessarily overall, but for the Vikings.
I have my last trip this weekend, and when I come back, we can just hammer out episode after episode. Like, just block your calendars in the evenings. We'll just do like Pat Sajak and Vanna White back in the day. Just 100 episodes like in one day.
They do 6 a day, by the way. They do 6
Yeah, that's insane.
Looked it up. Brooke and I watch it all the time. So I actually watched like 2 episodes before we jumped on this. So that's fun.
I love it. Well, guys, thank you for joining. It was good to be back. I can't wait to break down the draft stuff when it finally happens too. That's going to be just awesome. So for everyone watching, appreciate it. Like and subscribe to not only on the YouTube channel, but the podcast as well. We love hearing what you think. So let us know what you think of the mock draft today. And we'll be back next week. But until next time, Skol.